and welcome once again to the Magna Carta Sports Network. My name is Wes. I'm your host tonight. Um, have a good show for you guys tonight. Talk a little bit about the NBA and some things that have been going on. Thank you once again for watching. If you haven't yet, please like, share, and subscribe. We come to you a few times a week, just talking just a little bit about the most recent updates in sports. If you would like to continue to be a part of this channel, this discussion, again, just join the overall network. So tonight we're talking a little bit about the NBA and in particular the Nets, Brooklyn Nets, and their situation that has transpired over the last few years. It finally came to a halt today as their head coach, Steve Nash, was finally let go. Steve Nash has been with the team, I believe, now for 3 years after Kenny Atkinson was fired their initial first year. Here they're looking to try their best to salvage the season. 7 games, 8 games into the season, and things are not going in the direction that the team would hope. There's a lot of different reasons that things didn't work out. I think initially everyone who watched the team and saw from the beginning, as soon as Steve Nash was hired, Kyrie and Kevin Durant went on their podcast together, and the first thing Kyrie says is that, you know what, we don't really need a coach. I can coach the team. Kevin can coach the team. Steve Nash can coach the team a little bit. It all depends on who's in the position and who has it going that night, which is an interesting concept. Um, the team overall has really underachieved, and a lot of times this happens, because a coach is not able to connect with his players as best as possible. A lot of times you see people who are, you see teams that are willing to run through a wall for their coach, to really give up their everything, and this just wasn't the case. For the time period that Kyrie has been with the Nets, he's mostly been the overall point guard. And what happens is that team that you're playing, it eventually becomes your leader. So whatever your leader's personality is, your team will eventually mold itself into that. So while Kevin Durant is the best player on the Nets, the ball oftentimes flows through Kyrie Irving. He often finishes with the most shots on many nights, more shots than Kevin Durant. So the team will end up becoming what his personality is. And you see the Nets oftentimes that they have their highs and they have their lows. They get up for certain games, and then other games that they should easily win, where they have more talent than another team, they end up laying an egg. And this is something that's kind of been the case for the Brooklyn Nets during this particular stretch. They're hoping now to find a new coach and hopefully do their best to get the most out of this roster. But I think overall, everyone kind of knows that this team isn't really built with the championship ingredients that are needed. To get to the NBA Finals, you have to go through physical, mental wars with other teams, and it becomes a battle of enforcing your will on another team. You see it often. You enter a series and there's hope on both sides. Game one is normally competitive. Game two is competitive. Game three might be a blowout. Game four, the same. And then there's a stat, I think it says like 85% of teams that win game five end up winning the series. What happens is in that moment, you get to really show the team who is best. You've had a chance to see all of their X's and O's. You've gone through adjustments. Now it's a matter of whose culture is stronger, who's willing to dive on the floor, who's willing to sit down in a defensive stance for a little bit longer. And that all comes down to buying in from day one. So if the beginning of this season, Kevin Durant asked for Steve Nash to be fired. He didn't get that particular option granted. So if you're already going to the season telling your coach that I don't really listen to you, you're obviously not going to do what he says in the most difficult moments of the season because we haven't practiced that. And we are a consummation of the decisions that we make and how we have chosen to accept what has been given to us. Durant and Kyrie have shown overall that they aren't the leaders that are going to take a team to the next level. And now the Nets have to decide now. Kyrie Irving is getting, so I've talked about this and we'll continue to talk about it throughout the season. He's a free agent. Do you want to let him walk? You're going to try your best to trade him right now. I'm sure the Lakers would love to still take him on, and maybe it's best to kind of just get out from underneath that contract. Maybe get any kind of player that you can get from the Lakers, and then just look to move on from there. I'm not sure if Kevin Durant wants to continue to being with the team. He has already asked for a trade. Maybe this summer and they give him that what he wants, and the team looks to just start over all over again. Whatever the decision, we'll get to see that as time plays out. But right now, it's still a lot of things that are in the air. And having, many reports have come out that Ime Udoka, who recently left the Boston Celtics in a bit of chaos, as the coach was suspended for a time period, will be looking to be accepted and starting his new role as the coach of the Nets. The Nets will probably let this run for a few weeks, probably prior just up until the All Star break, and we'll see from there where they are. If things are working out, no problem, they'll continue on. But if things again aren't going as hoped, there'll be time to just let some pieces go and then move from there. The Nets overall just aren't a team. When you look at their team, one of my brothers spoke about it once. He said that the Nets look like a team that haven't just met each other in the parking lot just before the game started. And the same thing when you go to the gym and you're trying to play pickup with guys you never really met before. You're learning about their skills, is how they look on a night in and night out basis. There just isn't a lot of cohesion overall with the roster. So tonight the Nets had a game versus the Bulls. The final score was 108 to 99. The Bulls end up pulling out this victory. The Nets were leading for most of the first three quarters, and then after that, the Bulls really pulled away overall. And it became the same thing once again. Their overall talent is winning initially, and then as the game gets tighter and tighter, it becomes a culture thing where are you willing to sit down in the stands? Do you trust your teammates? Are you willing to make the extra pass? And again, you got the chance to see the Bulls were willing to make those decisions. They were really focused on defense and how they can turn offense into defense into transitional points. And at the end of the day, they were able to pull out that victory and get everything that they wanted and to continue moving on in the overall process of making their playoff push again with this team for the second year. Lonzo Ball has been injured for the majority of his time that he's been with the Bulls and mostly for his time within the NBA. The Bulls drafted young man Dosumu, and he's providing what the team needs. He's learning more how to be a facilitator, but he came in as a great defender, which is a great skill to have overall, especially as your lead guard. You have to be able to stop some of the best ball handlers in the league, and that is the initial point of contact for your defense. So if you aren't great in that initial space where you're you're getting beat off the dribble right at the beginning, your defense isn't going to be great. So the Bulls overall have a good foundation. They don't have the greatest backline protection, but they'll figure things out from there. Tonight, the Derozan finished with 20 points, Zach Lavine with 29, and Dosumu with 17 points overall. The Bulls, in the end, they'll be fine. They'll finish somewhere between 4 and 6 or 7, win a bunch of games depending on health, and then probably lose somewhere either in the first or second round. But the story overall is about the Nets and how they overall are going to do, because when you have that much talent, two potential Hall of Famers, you have Ben Simmons, you have Seth Curry, Patty Mills, a bunch of other players. There's going to be a lot of pressure on you, and the fact that they're in Brooklyn as well. It's something that's constantly going to be talked about. So no matter how they do, whether they win or they lose, they'll continue to be a topic as long as Kevin Durant is on the team. Durant finished tonight with 32 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Royce O'Neal had 20 points, and Kyrie Irving finished with 4 points on 2 of 12 shooting and 0 for 6 from 3. again, they've had an issue where they've allowed Kyrie to be their point guard, and that person who runs your team has to have a steadying presence. Um, Issues are going to come throughout the game. You're going to have highs, you're going to have lows, you're going to have all kind of different situations that occur, and to have someone just with the he calls himself an artist a lot, and a lot of times you see artists who they're up late, they're drinking, they're smoking. It's not a stable lifestyle when you compare that to the life of a professional athlete who are known mostly for discipline, taking care of their bodies and different things like that. So um, the Nets have many structural issues that I just don't think that even with Ime Udoka, um, the overall team that he had in Boston, it had a bunch of foundational pieces that were built to succeed, and this team just doesn't have that here with the Brooklyn Nets. So while it's an overall story right now, it's really not one in the grand scheme of things because as good as they are, they just really don't have a real chance at um, winning a championship. It's one of those things where you have a puncher's chance, but in reality, the building blocks for what is needed, it just haven't been set. So I think the real story here now becomes how long is it until they blow things up? They could really use a restart. The worst thing that could happen, Kyrie Irving is free at the end of the year, and then Kevin Durant somehow, some way, he's 34 years old, ends up getting hurt, and then you're stuck. That's the worst thing that can happen. So if I'm the Brooklyn Nets and I'm their team, you give it a few games and then you look to move on from there. So it's unfortunate they could have had Jalen Brown this year after if they traded Durant, but here they are anyway. The other game on tonight, the Warriors and the Heat. Warriors end up losing to the Heat 109 to 116. Um, I talked about it at the beginning of the year, and it continues to be the case right now. The Warriors, that their starting five is great. They're doing a lot of good things, but again, in that starting five, you start Draymond Green, you start Klay Thompson, and you start Steph Curry. All players that have done amazing things in their career here, but overall, the NBA season is a long season, and what you're going to need is great depth that allows you to rest your starters, allows them to play 27 to 33 minutes a night, and to be fresh once the playoff starts. Right now, they're kind of in a weird spot. They lost so much depth last year between Otto Porter Jr., Gary Payton the second, and some other players as well. And they're trying to supplement that and replace those players with younger players, Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, James Wiseman, and it's just showing right now that those guys particularly aren't ready for the moment. The Warriors had Bielitsa last year as well, a big 6'10" um, guy from the European who was able to shoot a bunch of threes. So you go from having a more mature bench unit to all of a sudden you're relying on second and third year players who haven't learned how to play the game, have very little overall NBA experience, and it's showing right now overall that they're just hemorrhaging points with their bench units. And as the bench struggles, eventually what you try to do is to play your starters more minutes, and as you do that, they end up and eventually getting injured. Klay Thompson's been really in and out of the lineup a lot as he recovers from his previous injuries. Draymond Green again isn't going to give you a bunch of points or anything like that. And as he's aging, he isn't able to play on a nightly basis the way that he did previously. So we will see how this goes for the Nets. The Heat were able to get the victory once again. They're led by Jimmy Butler, I believe, who had 21 points tonight. Bam, he's I don't know. I've never really been a big fan of Bam. He does well, but overall, he shrinks the overall size of the team. He's expected to kind of be a two, but he's more of like a three or a four, but getting paid as a one or a two. Yeah, and Heat overall, they're always going to be there. They're going to be scrappy. They're going to fight. They have a great coach in Eric Spoelstra. Pat Riley running the upstairs as the president of basketball operations. They'll continue to make moves that add to the overall team. They're still waiting for Victor Oladipo to return. He'll add some scoring off the bench for the team, and they'll look to pick up some wins here, go on a run. But overall, the NBA depth and the teams that are here right now are just better. So as a result, there isn't any easy nights anymore. You aren't winning just showing up. You have to really have players. You have to have depth. You have to have top end talent. And a lot of these teams, what happens is it looks like a lot of teams have become more middle of the pack. They're more. I feel like they're more middle of the pack teams right now than there are top end teams. So as a result, there's going to be a lot of parity. Maybe one or two teams will win 55 plus games. Most teams will be within that 44 to 56 wins, and we'll see what happens in the playoffs from there. For honorable mention, the Timberwolves lose to the Suns. The Suns have done a lot better than I initially expected. They are my surprise team so far, and they overall have the basic ingredients of what you're going to need in a regular season. They have a great decision maker at point guard, Chris Paul. Even though he's older, he still has his wisdom and understanding. They have their big and DeAndre Ayton, who's able to set screens, and from there, it's less about athleticism for Chris Paul. Once he has that screen, he has a one-on-one with the team center, and from there, he's able to pick apart opposing teams' defenses. Things change a little bit in the playoffs when they end up having teams that can switch, and it requires Chris Paul to officially beat people off the dribble. But during the regular season, the team will be great. They have Devin Booker, who can score a bunch of points, and a bunch of other wings who can knock down threes. So again, it looks like they're rinse, wash, and repeat are getting ready to win another 55 plus games this season. Finish with a 1, 2, or 3 seed, but they just lack that overall superstar on their team, and eventually we'll see how that goes overall for the team. I think the real story here is becoming the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves gave up a king's ransom for Rudy Gobert in the offseason. They gave up, I believe, 5 picks. They gave up 4 players, and things aren't working out well right now for the Timberwolves. One of the main things that I thought about prior to the season starting was they don't have a lead guard. As we talked about with the Phoenix Suns, how they have someone who is an excellent decision maker. The Timberwolves have D'Angelo Russell, who is a good player in and of himself. He'll be great in a shooting guard position or a lead guard off the bench who comes in and scores points for a second unit. But as a starting point guard in the league, he's a big drop off when you just comparing him to Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, Chris Paul, De'Aaron Fox. He's a big drop off from those particular kinds of players. So overall, as the team goes, you'll see the team having ups and downs. Again, Cat called out Anthony Edwards last week, saying that he needs to eat better and condition his body better. So eventually, the overall leadership has changed for the team. They had the president of basketball operations from the Denver Nuggets come over to take over the reins here at Timberwolves, and they didn't bring in D'Angelo Russell. They didn't sign Cat. So my expectation is sometime here in the next, they'll see how things go here by the end of the season, but I think sometime in the next 12 to 18 months, we can see Karl Anthony Towns being traded. So these are just some thoughts that I had for this evening. Overall, just seeing where the NBA season is going. A lot of teams that were expected to be good are not showing themselves to be so. But we'll see how things turn out. Please continue following along here with us at the Magna Carta Sports Network. We have our NFL recaps coming up at the end of the week. We'll also be doing a recap to the Thursday night football game, probably dropping Thursday or Friday. And we'll look to have more content for you coming here shortly. Thank you so much for your time and have a good night.